We're right back here with you on We Connect and continuing our discussion with Dr. Stephen Hughes. Now, where we stopped was talking about the relation between Tamil film, politics, and religion. So where do you think this actually stems from, Steve? Do you believe that it goes back a long, long way?
Absolutely. I think most people think about the beginning of the connection between politics and cinema with the beginning of DMK films in the 50s. And it's absolutely true. That's a very strong articulation of that. But I would argue that cinema has always been political from the moment it's introduced, Indian films introduced in Madras. The first Indian silent film that lands up in 1919, 1920, lands at precisely the time when people in Madras are organizing for the first elections, and it gets caught up with Home Rule League, and they're trying to use the enthusiasm for these Hindu mythological films as an indication of support for Home Rule. And the Home Rule movement, and particularly Annie Besant is trying to spin this as a support for that. But people have always made political claims on these films, and in the 1930s there's a lot of nationalist themes that come out in early Tamil film. So by no means is this DMK cinema the first to sort of to introduce political elements into the film.
It's a pretty clever use, really, of the medium, don't you think?
Yes, in a way, but if you just look at the films themselves, the introduction of political symbols and political allegories in the films themselves is perhaps the sort of maybe the most obvious way that its film is related to politics. But I would suggest that there's another little less obvious way. It has to do with the way that people have had access and have watched the films. For example, one of the key factors I think that hasn't really been discussed about the political aspects of Tamil film is the extent to which rural cinema spread cinema in the 40s and 50s at a time that made it viable as a political medium. So when they're looking to sort of politically mobilize the masses to have these film theaters in all the small places without electricity and places that aren't reached by other media was extremely powerful.
So do you believe that rural cinema is still alive and well?
I think it's dying, but over the course of the last century is without a doubt one of the distinctive features about cinema in South India is the strength of rural film watching, these touring cinemas and
Right. I want to draw you out now on your current research. Now, you are at the Roja Muthaya Library and you're doing a lot of stuff there. Tell me about that, Steve.
Yeah, I'm currently funded by the American Institute of Indian Studies to do a research project on what would seem to be a bunch of dusty old film records from the 1940s. It's a collection of business correspondence from a film distribution company called South Indian Pictures. And in this collection, it's one set of business records, but it sheds new light on this cinema as a rural phenomenon. The main people they're supplying films to are these touring cinemas in many places that are as small as have populations of 5,000 people, drawing from local population. So this research will, I think, hopefully shed light on what I think is a big missing part in the way that we understand the power and presence of Tamil cinema in the South. If you talk to any of your old relatives around here, usually the first story you get is that they will tell you their first experience of watching film is sitting in the sand right in front of the screen.
That's true.
And but beyond these little anecdotal stories, people haven't been able to sort of put together this rural base of cinema with the larger story of cinema and politics. And in terms of political mobilization, I think it's quite important.
But Steve, with you were just saying about rural cinema actually on the way down, it really is dying. So then what happens, the future of the industry, cinema?
Well, I think the industry no longer is dependent on this outlet because the film industry is so caught up with all the other media industries. Television is a far more powerful media insofar as it brings cinema into everyone's home, especially I mean, just about anyone can own and watch TV now in Tamil Nadu. So that sort of, if you like, television has really helped the spread of cinema like no other platform has.
Indeed, most television channels, no matter what genre they're into, they do depend a lot on cinema programming and cinema-related stuff.
It's very true. I mean, when TV has started coming up in the 1990s, there's a lot of concern in the film industry that TV is going to mean the end of the film industry.
That's right, I remember that.
To the contrary, it is actually, I think it's a powerful tool, the film industry, of selling their products, one that they could not have imagined back in the days when they were only selling cinema tickets. So the success and future of the film industry is tied into a larger media industry itself.
Right.
And you can't do without film content. All new media, I mean, the secret about new media is that it is dependent on old media, selling old content in new platforms. And
right.
This is the key to the new media business.
Right. Steve, when we come back after just going away for a very short while, I'd like to talk with you about where does all this research go? Who wants it? Who needs it? Do we in fact pay any attention to it? We'll be right back with you. And we'll take a very, very brief short break and get right back to you on WeConnect.